If we adopt the same collaborative mindset and practices that got to the moon and back, and that built the International Space Station, we can alleviate poverty and do much more.
The Interplanetary Podcast. The exploration of space for the benefit of all humankind. Your hosts here in England, Matthew Russell and Chris Carney.
Oh yeah, baby.
Yeah, baby. Ron Garron.
Hey, Ronnie Garron, ladies and gentlemen. What the one Ronnie?
A mission specialist on STS-124.
Yes.
Where he
very
helped
same.
build the International Space Station.
What a wonderful thing it is.
Yeah, and he returned on Expedition 27. So he's been up there twice.
Oh.
The reason why we chose him is because we're going to do a bit of a deep dive onto the International Space Station. What about that, Chris?
I love it. It's one of my favourite things off the world.
Yeah. Oh, yes. It's not even my favourite thing in the world. It's not even in the world. Oh, yes.
Isn't it mad? It's mad that it's a thing that will never visit Earth. It will always be away from Earth. When it comes back, obviously it'll be in debris and blah blah blah. But it's in its true form, it will never even visit the place that it served so well.
Yeah. Well, what's very exciting is very recently, one of the first major modules of the ISS just burnt up in the atmosphere. So it's like, in other words, the Piers module just burnt up in the atmosphere. And that's the first time, it's the first major chunk of the International Space Station that's kind of come, that they've deliberately taken off and burnt up in the atmosphere. So
It's not the only Piers that I'd like to see burnt up in the atmosphere, Matt.
Yes. Good.
Thanks.
Before we start, though, I've got to give a massive shout out to the patrons.
Yes.
That are the biggest legends of all time.
Yeah.
But their names are Justin Roberts from the UK,
Justin Young from Tasmania,
Drew Wright from Texas,
and Sigmund Eid from Norway.
Yeah, from where your missus is from.
Absolutely.
Isn't that lovely?
Yeah, one of my fellow countrymen, sort of.
An international bunch of patrons. And the rest of the gang, we should read their names out at the end of the show.
Yeah.
As promised. So, yes, thank you very much, guys. Absolutely genius. You help buy things like the RX software that cleans up this mess so that it doesn't sound noisy and stuff.
Essentials.
Essential stuff. Essential dings. So, I thought because 2021 is the 50th year of space stations existing. Did you know that?
I didn't know that, but what was the first one?
First one was Salute 1, but we'll get on to that because it's very interesting.
Yes.
Salute 1 was the first one back in 1971.
Oof. Wow. Amazing.
Yes. Space stations are as old as Matthew Russell. Very exciting. So, what is a space station, Chris? Would you be able to define a space station?
I don't know. I guess because a station is kind of somewhere where things arrive and leave, aren't they? But I guess it's also because it's a permanent thing, isn't it? But I guess nothing is permanent.
Yeah, I mean, it's never going to be permanent, is it? I mean, the length of the universe is really quite huge, and I don't suppose it in its design parameters, it doesn't have to survive things like the sun turning into a red giant.
Yeah, and the inevitable heat death.
Yeah, and et cetera, et cetera. So, no, I mean, I think you could define a space station as a place where humans could spend extended periods of time.
Yeah, I'll go with that, definitely.
In space, yeah. And it doesn't necessarily have sort of propulsion systems to go from one place to another, and it doesn't have landing systems. I think that would kind of, it's not supposed to land back down on Earth.
Okay.
Yeah, even though the space shuttle went up and I suppose you could stay in there for a bit, it's not really a space station, is it?
No.
It's a spacecraft. We've mentioned this a few weeks ago, but there's 3 different types of space station.
What?
First, second, and third generation.
All right.
So your first generation space stations with your early Salutes and Almazes, which were military versions of the Salute, or really, more correctly, Salute was a civilian version of the Almaz. Skylab, of course, was the American space station. pre-ISS.
Yeah.
That was also first generation. And the reason being that you couldn't really resupply it. It's got one docking port, that's it.
Right.
Second generations, though, have got more than one docking port. So you can visit it and sort of have things dock to it, etc., etc. And third generations, you can dock modular pieces to it. So you can kind of build it up like Lego.
Yeah. You can get bigger.
Like the
you
Mir.
can add and remove, reorganize, I guess.
Mir was the first of those. And really, I'm not going to do a big dive into Mir because there's so much to say about Mir that it would be ridiculous. But Mir was the first, and there's a little bit of controversy actually with Mir. When they first started getting on the International Space Station, the call sign was Alpha. And the Russians said, well, it's not really Alpha though, is it, the International Space Station? It's really Beta.
Oh,
because it's the second. Because it's the second one, yeah. So
deep burn.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree with that. I mean, like the International Space Station is very much a continuation of the work that the Russians had done on Mir.
Yeah.
Mir is the first of the third generation space stations. If the International Space Station was spinning or something and was of a completely different design, a fourth generation station, let's say, then fair enough.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I think that maybe the Americans should be like, good luck with your beta moon landings, Russia.
So yeah, or China. Who's going to have the beta moon landings?
Yeah.
How many inhabited space stations have there been before the ISS, do you think?
Okay, I'm just looking what you've got on a little bit of a list there. I'm going to say there's been 6 before the space station.
6?
Yeah.
Well, there was 9 space stations before International Space Station, but only 8 ended up being inhabited.
Oh, right, okay.
But which is still pretty good. 8 inhabited space stations at some point. So the Russians have absolutely kicked ass on that, by the way. So 8 of those 9 space stations have been Russian.
Right.
And 1 American, which was Skylab, until the International Space Station. So here we go. The Salyut 1, 50 years ago, April the 19th, 1971, Salyut 1 was launched. Guess what rocket it was launched on? This is really interesting.
I don't know. I'm going to have to let you go with that one. I've got no idea.
Right, so the Russians, I mean, obviously the most famous is the Soyuz, but they have this, a rocket called the Proton, which looks really modern.
Yeah.
But actually it's really old. But the Proton has been their kind of really successful heavy lift vehicle. And if you ever want to see spectacular rocket explosions, it tends to be the Proton that has them. As in, they're pretty scary when they go wrong. But the Proton, actually, the Proton K, this was 3-stage, is also the same rocket that they launched the sort of main module of the ISS. So, things don't change very much in
50 years.
Space.
I'm just looking at it now. It's a beauty. It is a beauty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is a beauty, yeah. And, so Salyut 1 was visited by Soyuz 10 and Soyuz 11.
Yeah.
So how annoying for the Soyuz 10 crew, because they would have been the first people ever to visit a space station.
Yeah.
They managed to do a soft dock, but then because they weren't, the latches didn't quite work, there was a sort of latching problem. They couldn't quite make the hard dock and so failed to get on board.
Oh, no.
So, damn. But that was better than the horribleness that for Soyuz 11. So a Soyuz 11 crew did manage to get on board Salyut 1 for 23 days.
All right.
So they were those 3, Georgy Dobrovolsky, Vladislav Volkov, and Viktor Patsayev are the first people ever to sort of spend time on a space station. But probably those names are more familiar with people because they are the only people ever to have died above the Kármán line.
Oh, R.I.P.
In other words, so they were all asphyxiated when a valve failed to open when they returned to Earth.
Awful.
And they were all found dead in their capsule. So absolutely horrendous. So they're the only people to have lost their lives in space.
Yeah.
But nothing to do with the actual staying on the space station.
Yeah. So
which is weird.
That's pretty devastating. It's not really. It's not widely publicized. I guess the Russians have not really been as. I don't know. It's a thing less known. I tell you, it's less commonly known that there have been deaths in proper space.
Yeah, I wouldn't be at all surprised if the international press did not know about that one at the time, and it took some time to come out.
Yeah.
Soyuz 1, of course, was the first space station to burn up in the atmosphere as well, October the 11th, 1971.
Yeah.
So just after I was born. Salyut 2 was a military Almaz station. As I actually said, really, the Salyuts, the Salyuts were civilianized versions of these Almaz stations.
Yeah.
But Salyut 2 never got crewed because it just failed and burnt up. They lost control of it.
Yeah.
So that was the one that didn't work. Skylab was then launched. So America got in second, beta.
I was just going to say.
And that was occupied for 24 weeks between May 1973 and February 1974.
Yeah.
So that's operated by three separate astronaut crews: Skylab 2, Skylab 3, and Skylab 4. So, it was an orbital workshop, Earth observation, and they did lots and lots of experiments on there. So it was, Skylab, again, not really got much time to sort of do a big dive into Skylab because we want to get onto
the big guy,
International Space Station,
Delta.
But Skylab was always doomed because there was no way to kind of reboost its orbit because the space shuttle was nowhere near finished at that point. And so it basically entered the atmosphere in 1979 and scattered debris all across the Indian Ocean and nearby to Western Australia.
The year I was born.
Our lives are somehow interwoven.
They are.
in a mysterious way, like the Dharma Initiative.
I think so too.
With space stations, isn't that weird? Salyut 3. So that was occupied by Pavel Popovich and Yuri Atyukin on Soyuz 14, but again Soyuz 15 failed to dock. So Salyut 4. Soyuz 17 and Soyuz 18 both made stays at the station. So that was quite successful. Salyut 5, 1976, was a military one. So that had Soyuz 21, a couple of people in there, but they actually got out in an emergency situation because they thought they were being poisoned.
Oof.
So they made an emergency landing. Soyuz 23 actually failed to dock. Soyuz 24 visited and cleaned the air and did a bunch of experiments.
Yeah.
And Salyut 5 actually carried the German Kristall furnace, which was used for crystal growth experiments.
Do you know that poisoning situation? A similar thing happened in ZZ and in where's that down at where that cathedral is?
Salisbury.
Damn it.
Salisbury. Yeah.
Never mind. A punt. It was a punt.
Salyut 6. Now, Salyut 6.
Yeah.
We were talking about first generation, second generation, third generation.
Yeah.
Really, Salyut 6 in 1977 was the first second generation space station.
Right, okay.
Because it had 2 docking ports, which meant you could have 2 craft visit simultaneously. So one as a lifeboat, one sort of coming and going. So it really sort of massively opens up what you could do. So going from like these small little visits, a bit like the Chang'e, the original Chang'es had like just people nip up and go in and out, and then they would crash them. This is the first second generation. So you've got 32 people visited There's 10 short duration crews and 6 long duration crews all visited.
Yeah.
So those long durations, they stop for 96 days to 185 days. So this is where they're starting to get really long time on board a space station. And I should imagine 185 days on Salyut 6 must have been brutal.
In the 70s. I mean, they only sorted the toilets on ISS in 2018. So...
Yeah, it would have definitely... You'd have had to have had that kind of Russian grit to get through it, I think.
Definitely not many hits on Maslow's hierarchy of needs there.
Yeah, well, if you're in Russia, you can skip most of Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Definitely.
Like it's just like several of the blocks of the pyramid are replaced just with vodka.
It's true, though, isn't it? Absolutely right.
Yeah, it really is. But I've got because Salyut 35, which was one of the sort of very long stay ones. That was during on 19th of July 1980. So during the Olympics, the 1980 Summer Olympics, they in Russia they communicated with the Central Lenin Stadium, and it was sort of
that's pretty amazing.
Blasted out into the stadium from the scoreboard. So that was a pretty cool coup.
Yeah, definitely.
That the Russians had right then. So that was 1980. Salyut 7, another second generation space station, was again quite a lot of crews went up. 12 crewed and 15 uncrewed launches between 1982 and 1991. So that was pretty successful. But the sort of successor to that, which I suppose you could call Salyut 8 or DOS 8, or I think it was something like that, is Mir.
Yeah.
And do you know what the word Mir stands for?
No.
It literally stands for peace.
Oh.
Isn't that beautiful?
Isn't that
I'm
amazing?
actually wearing my Mir space station T-shirt.
Oh my goodness! Why is this not a visual podcast? I've always thought.
Yeah,
this.
I know. Yeah, I love Mir because Mike Foale, of course, a American astronaut who was born in Britain,
a
bit of a Brit. He's very famous for being on Mir because he essentially rescued it with quick thinking and his enormous brain.
Yeah,
very, very funny story. We've gone over that on several podcasts. When we interviewed Mike Foale, we went over it, and I went over it on another podcast. But it's one of my favourite space stories.
Fantastic.
How he managed to gain control after his two Russian comrades basically were practicing docking a progress module, and it basically hit the spacecraft, and it was like, yeah, this is perhaps game over. But that had continuous human presence in low Earth orbit for 9 years, 357 days. So pretty much a decade.
Impressive.
Of continued presence. And of course, then that the Russians were building Mir 2.
Right.
At the same time that NASA were preparing to build the Freedom space station.
Oh God!
You can see a lot of the nomenclature of these space stations is showing off about how peaceful you are.
Yeah.
And et cetera, et cetera. But the Americans were building Freedom space station. Russians were working on Mir 2, and the Europeans were working on Columbus, the man-tended free flyer.
Oh. I didn't know
which
about
was
this.
supposed to be crewed by sending up Hermes on top of an Ariane 5, I believe. So that would have been a very interesting time in space had that had happened in Europe. But it was obviously way too expensive for all three people. Decided, do you know what? What we should do is all club together.
Well, because this is going to cost a few quid. So
yeah. So it involves 5 space agencies: Roscosmos, NASA, JAXA, of course, from Japan, ESA from Europe, and the CSA from Canada. So it's it is legally the most complex program in history.
Yeah, and there's only Africa and South America who aren't on it as a continent
involved. Well, I mean, they've virtually as continents, they've all had astronauts on board.
Yeah.
So they have been involved with the ISS. Really, I suppose the only place that hasn't been involved at all is China.
Yeah.
Because they're just not allowed to be involved.
Right. Sure. Yeah. But they'll have the last laugh.
Oh, please don't say they'll have the last laugh. It's not the best thing in the whole world that they'll have the last laugh. But hey,
sorry.
So, do you want a few facts about the ISS before we move on? Because they're all quite cool. So, it's obviously the largest artificial object in space.
Yes,
but quite considerably one of the largest objects in space.
Yeah.
And do you know, okay, in miles, how high do you think it flies?
I think it's about 250 miles.
It is correct. And when people are shown, if you hold a globe in front of people and you ask them to sort of get a model of the International Space Station and sort of fly it over the Earth, of course, they're wildly out about how high up it is.
Yeah.
Like 250 miles, if you think about it in terms of how high that is off the ground, is virtually nothing.
Yeah.
It's not even the distance from my house to where I work, which is insane, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it's like, it's barely off the surface. And of course, which means that it is experiencing drag. So how fast do you think you have to go to maintain orbit at 250 miles high?
Oh, well, I do know that it orbits about every 90 minutes. I know that. So, and that's traveling, what's the circumference of the Earth? Oh, come on, Chris. You must know that. Let's see. Per second? Can I, is it about 5 meters per second? I don't know.
Well, actually, that's quite a good point, because it's 93 minutes is an hour and a half, isn't it? So, I guess, so you could work out the circumference of the Earth. It's about 17,000 miles an hour that it has to go.
Yeah.
So 17,130 miles an hour.
Yeah.
So, that the circumference of the Earth, by that reckoning, is about 26,000 miles, isn't it?
Sure. Yeah. Yep. I'll go with that.
So, but that's 5 times faster than Blackbird, the SR-71, or
one of my favorite
8 times
aircraft.
faster than Concorde.
Also one of my favorite aircraft.
Or 8 times, Blackbird and Concorde.
Amazing.
Doesn't get much better than that, does it?
Nope.
That's as glory as it gets.
Yeah.
So there are 2 sections as well of the space station. There's the Russian orbital segment, or the ROS, and the United States orbital segment, the USOS. So the Russian one is completely operated by Russia, whereas the USOS is run by the United States and lots of other nations involved in, sorting it out.
Okay, so there's still a little bit of distrust going on over here.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they sort of go into each other's bit. I mean, what happened this week, which we'll get onto, is just incredible, but it does show that there's a lot of trust between the two parties, because it sounds like it was almost a catastrophe, but we'll get onto it, because it is, for me, one of the most kind of exciting things for a long time, because it just seems so crazy that things like that can happen.
Yeah.
So as of today, the day that the podcast comes out, I think it's been continuously occupied for 20 years, 273 days.
Yeah.
So since November 2000.
That's about right.
Yeah. How much do you think it's cost?
I had it down at 120 billion, but I think maybe my research is a couple of years old. So obviously, is it about how much it will cost when it ends?
It's a weird one, because I did a bit of internet scrolling.
Yeah.
And when it gets to the end, $150 billion. 100 billion pounds.
Yeah.
For us people that used as some form of decent currency. So, assuming that there's been 20,000 person days of use from 2000 to 2015 by 2 to 6 person crews, each person day roughly costs $7.5 million.
Oh my God. Oh my God, that is incredible! And when you say like you speak to Tim Peake, it's like, why do you have to work so hard when you're up there? It's like, well,
yeah, and you think he had 6 months up there?
Yeah,
that's a lot of millions.
That's
isn't
an incredible amount of money. That's amazing. Well, I like those maths. And you said that's like half the cost of Skylab in total.
Yeah, so that's half the cost of Skylab. So yeah, Skylab would have been closer to $15 million per person day.
Oh, I see. Okay, right. Amazing. Wow.
Yeah,
crazy stuff.
Ridiculous.
Yeah.
So yeah, about 250 people from 19 countries have visited the ISS.
That's an incredible
Of course, lots
achievement.
of people have been more than once as well.
Yeah.
So it's quite. When you're trying to find that figure, it's quite hard to find that actual figure. But I think it's about 250, 19 countries.
Yeah.
The most consecutive days spent on the ISS is joint with Scott Kelly and Mikhail Kornienko, who were both doing that experiment for 340 days.
Ooh.
I don't get why 340 days. Why not just go the whole year?
Well, I thought that about the when we were talking about how long Mir was up there, because that was just short. It was just short of 10 years. It's like, come on.
Do you think there might be other operational reasons why they don't go for round figures?
Yeah, maybe.
I think that can be the only explanation.
Definitely. Like, come on, your time's up. Like, yeah.
Now, what legend has had the longest single space flight by a woman?
Obviously, it's our Peggy, isn't it?
Yeah, it's old Peggy Whitson, who's also racked up 665 days in space in total.
Brilliant.
I mean, that's just absolutely nuts.
Yeah, absolutely incredible.
It's quite a long time.
Yeah.
Mostly on the ISS, so presumably not all on the ISS. So the biggest crew that there's ever been is 13 people, and that was in 2009. Although it's happened a few times, so that was the first of the big crews.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, here's an interesting thing about gravity on the ISS.
Okay.
That I think most people get this wrong, don't they?
Yeah.
So, how much gravity is there on the ISS, Chris?
Well, it's experiencing the Earth's gravity from a distance. So, a micro amount, 0.3.
No, it's experiencing 90% of the Earth's gravity, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so it's not that, as we said, it's not that far off the surface.
True.
Really, what's happening is that you're in free fall. So that's why it feels like it's weightlessness.
Yeah.
Right. So it's a perceived weightlessness because it's how you feel if you jump off a diving board. If you had time to think about it, you would feel weightless.
Or if you were in an elevator.
But you're...
And the elevator was falling to the ground.
But you're definitely experiencing gravity.
Yeah.
So there's quite a few things that affect that microgravity as well.
Yeah.
So you've got drag from the atmosphere. So even though it's 250 miles high, there's still some atmosphere up there. So it still gets a little bit of drag.
That's amazing.
There's vibration and from all the sort of mechanical systems and the crew themselves. So that affects the microgravity environment. There's also things like all the time there's little onboard motors and gyroscopes going to keep the position correct.
Yeah.
So that will, give you feelings of artificial gravity, I suppose, including the thruster firings for attitude and orbital changes. And then there's actually tiny little tidal effects, of course, because your head is slightly. If you were standing up with your feet at the nadir and your head away from that, then obviously your head is orbiting the Earth at a slightly different height than your feet, and so there are sort of tidal effects there as well. Small forces between all the mechanical parts of the space station. It all has to be taken into consideration.
That's the amazing thing, is that it's all taken into consideration and it's all carried out so well. So yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Now, here's a fact that I really couldn't get my head around. So obviously the Russians were thinking of building Mir 2. So they'd built Mir, and Mir was up and going, but they started building Mir 2 in 1985.
Right.
And they'd actually built Zvezda, which is, one of the major ISS modules. It became the ISS service module. They built that in 1985.
Wow.
So that's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like having a SpaceX Falcon or a Dragon, and it's got a bit of a DeLorean on it.
Exactly. Yeah, it's nuts, isn't it? 16 pressurized modules. Can you name some of them?
Oh, the different ones. Oh, I haven't gotten that. Let me see. Is the one called Beam?
There is one called Beam.
That
was the inflatable one that was added quite recently.
I like the one that's named after one of my favourite female harmony groups, Destiny.
Oh, yes, the Destiny module.
Yeah, and there's also a tribe called...
a tribe called Quest?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And I just said Harmony. There's also one called Harmony.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let me see.
And I've just mentioned Zvezda.
Yeah, of course.
There's Zarya as well. Zarya, which literally means dawn or daybreak.
That's lovely.
Yeah, it is beautiful. Razvet, which I've never heard of. Poisk module. The Leonardo, named after one of the mutant
Ninja Turtles.
It is, isn't it? Yeah. Named after one of the mutant turtles.
Yeah.
Have you done Tranquility?
Tranquility, yeah, of course. So that's a little nod, isn't it? That's beautiful. Unity.
And Unity, and of course, everyone's favourite module, because really it does the most amount of outreach.
Francis Ford Coppola.
Yeah, named after Francis Ford. The cupola. So and there's 2 Japanese modules on there as well.
Gemalps.
And then there's the European module, Columbus.
Oh, they keep using this Columbus, over and over.
Well, Columbus, yeah, they do actually. But Columbus was obviously the name of the European space station that they were designing, and that design turned into the Columbus module for the International Space Station.
Yeah, so they're just saying, look, we were doing this anyway.
I mean, the funny thing about all the European stuff is that they all basically look like washing machine drums. Everything that they do. The ATV looks like a washing machine drum. Columbus looks like a washing machine drum. It's like they're really good at building cylinders.
Yeah. And long may they continue.
Like aluminium cylinders.
Yeah,
they're very good. The Italians. Right. So, do you know... Here's a question for you.
Go ahead.
Do you know why the inclination of the International Space Station is set to 51.6 degrees away from the Earth's equator? So instead of like going round the middle, it sort of goes round at a jaunty 51.6 degrees.
Is it something to do with the Earth's magnetic field?
Oh, it's a nice one.
Oh.
No.
Oh.
No.
Oh, well.
No.
It was worth a go.
It's worth a go. And it's interesting because it's all about Soyuz.
Really?
So, and thankfully, they did sort of take, that they kind of did go, let's take into account Soyuz. Otherwise, there would have been no way of getting there once the space shuttle was retired.
Yeah, sure.
So, it's the only way you can get a Russian Soyuz up there and the Progress spacecraft from the Baikonur Cosmodrome, because that's at 46 degrees north latitude,
right?
And which means it stops it from flying over China and dropping rocket stages in inhabited areas like the Chinese don't seem to give a shit about and just do anyway. And the space station actually was always dropped for the space shuttle, by the way. So they used to drop it down a little bit because the space shuttle was carrying such heavy payloads.
Yeah.
It was just easier for the space shuttle to get there. But now the space shuttle's retired, they've raised the orbit up again.
Yeah. And they don't need they don't change it at all anymore, really.
No. So, I was saying it was flying through atmosphere.
Yeah.
Atmospheric drag reduces the whole altitude by 2 kilometers a month.
Yes.
The Zvezda service module does most of that kind of compensating for that, using 2 engines that are on board that. Visiting spacecraft can help the International Space Station maintain its orbit.
Brilliant.
But guess how much fuel that takes per year? Right, so give it me in tons and how much that costs.
Oh.
So maintaining the ISS altitude costs how much per year in fuel?
No, it's got to be hundreds of tons there. Like, it's ridiculous because it's
hundreds of tons?
Yeah.
I hope not. Oh, come on, not hundreds of tons.
All right, per year, okay.
I mean, if it was hundreds of tons, they would be flying spaceships up every blooming week to carry fuel.
You make a very good point there, Matthew. I'm going to go with 10 tons of fuel.
Close. See, I got you down. 7.5 tons of fuel per year.
That's a lot less.
And how much do you think that? How much? That's a lot. That is a lot.
Okay.
How much do you think that? How much is that as an annual cost?
Oh, well, at these prices at the moment, it's ridiculous. filled up on the way home from holidays yesterday. It was insane. So I'm going to say a couple $100 million in dollars.
Oh, absolutely spot on.
Really?
$210 million. Yeah, that's very good.
There we go.
Now, even though Zvezda was built in 1985, another way that it kind of maintains its position isn't using like rocket boosters at all. It's using gyroscopes.
Right.
So you can use gyroscopes to kind of reaction wheels, as they're often called, to help turn the spacecraft, right? So you store momentum in these things using so the electricity sort of spins them up and slows them down, and you can move things around using gyroscopes, particularly in space, and it's a really efficient way of doing it.
Yeah.
And the United States section also has computer controlled gyroscopes.
Yeah.
Right. And it can use thrusters to sort of adjust, because sometimes gyroscopes saturate. In other words, once they get to full speed, what do? You have to use thrusters to sort of get out of that situation. So it's called saturation.
Yeah.
But here's an incident very similar to the incident that happened this week. So in February 2005, Expedition 10, there was an incorrect command sent to the station's computer. And it started some of these engines up on, I guess it was the on the Russian side, or no, maybe it was Expedition 10 or something.
Right.
It was firing its rockets basically, and no one noticed. But the attitude control computers in the ROS and the United States section weren't talking to each other, right? So the Russian section was trying to compensate.
Yeah.
But as it compensated, the United States section was also trying to compensate. So basically, the two sides of the space station, these two different systems, are in a force fight where they're basically like competing against each other.
Yeah.
to try and adjust the space station.
This sounds like definitely sounds like an analogy for the Cold War. Literally, like.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? And so so the Russian, so that's happened. That has happened where it's like they're these two competing systems are competing for dominance, and no one knows what's going on because, of course, it's just the computers that are doing it in the background.
Yeah,
spinning up these gyroscopes. But yeah, I think the Russian section now has to ignore the US section when something starts to go wrong.
Right. Okay. So they are collaborating and working together on this.
Yeah.
Type of thing.
So they kind of go, yeah, we should probably sort this little glitch out.
Yeah, definitely.
But
I have found some fun facts. So
okay, yeah, hit me with some fun facts.
So the ISS is probably one of the only places you can actually have a good sniff of space. So ISS astronauts have described how a metallic ionization type smell occurs in the area where the pressure between the station and other docking craft is equalized. So in those pressurization chambers, you can have a good old sniff. Depending on the time of year, the ISS is the third or second brightest object in the night sky. The Moon and Venus tend to have a little bit of a compensation with it.
Yeah, Moon's definitely brighter. I don't know why people include the Moon in that. in that, because it's like including the sun. It's like ridiculous.
But it's still quite impressive that it's an artificial object that's just behind the old Moony.
Do you know what? I have a sixth sense when it comes to seeing the ISS.
Yeah.
Because it flew over Britain quite recently. There was, it doesn't. It's not always going over.
Yeah.
But the other day I thought, I wonder if the ISS is around. And I looked up, and there it was,
Brilliant.
literally flying over.
Yeah.
And then about 2 days later, I said to my friend, I was sort of walking down the street in Birmingham. I said, I bet the ISS is going to fly over in a bit. And I looked up, and there it was again.
Amazing.
I said, there it is.
Absolutely
There's the ISS. And they were really amazed that there was like all these different people up there.
Yeah.
A Frenchman and a Russian and an American and all that kind of stuff. And it was like, no way.
It's incredible.
Like, look, they're literally flying over right now at 17,000 miles an hour.
It's such a beautiful sight.
No, it kind of blew their mind a little bit.
Yeah,
so I do like going out and seeing.
I like that as well. Me and my
something-
friends have got a bit of a message group, so we're just like, it's due in 5, like we can run out if we know it's going to be nice and clear. And especially during lockdown, there's a few times I went over when we were just like, also you'd be sitting there for another 90 minutes and you'd be like, let's watch it again. Which is great, isn't it? But it is a beautiful thing to when you actually tell people as well, because they don't think the fact that there's, there are people up there in a permanent outpost in space. It's a fantastic thing. But did you know about the electrical systems on the ISS? Do you know the wires? How long would you say, if you add all the end-to-end wires, how long do you think it would be, Matt?
Oh my God! I mean, it's ridiculous on a 747.
Yeah.
So it's got to be totally ridiculous on the ISS.
It's actually
a loom.
Go ahead. Go for a guess.
Go on then. I bet it'd go around the world a couple of times.
I wish you were right. It's actually just under 13 kilometers of wire for the electrical systems. It's longer than the
disappointing. You disappointed me.
I know. I was expecting it to be a bit more, but it's the parameter of New York City's Central Park, and then a little bit more of wire. I would think it would have been a bit more, but there you go. But there's only 2 bathrooms. And so we all know quite well, the urine of the crew members is filtered back into the station's drinking water supply as it should. But did you know that the laboratory animals' urine is also filtered into the supply?
No, I didn't know that. Oh, genius.
Isn't that brilliant? So any laboratory animals up there, you're also drinking their piddle. But you're not really, are you? Drinking fresh water, which has been brilliantly...
Did you hear the interview with that I had... Brittany Zimmerman a few weeks ago, where she's been developing a way of getting the water out of poo, and then using the what's left as a 3D printing material.
That is amazing. That is so
I know,
good.
it's
like, I mean,
what's
talk about,
it's just crazy.
Yeah, talk about resourcefulness, because at the moment, poo's either sent off to burn off in the atmosphere or returned to Earth to be studied by poo scientists.
Oh God! What do you call a poo scientist? Is it banjo?
Oh, I don't know.
That's only a joke that me and my brother will understand, but it's good.
I'll have to be asking you about that later on, because it sounds like it could be X-rated.
Yeah. It's a very good joke.
But as mentioned before, they improved the toilets in 2018 at a cost of $23 million. So probably one of the most expensive toilets off the world. And so the other one, my last one, is that there are currently 100 baby bobtail squid on the ISS. NASA sent them as hatchlings in June 2021. They're not yet old enough to take over control of the space station, but when they do, I, for one, will welcome our new cephalopod overlords.
Oh, it's a pity that they're squids and not octopuses, because octopuses, they might actually be intelligent enough to fly the ISS.
Yeah, it's possible. Absolutely. But yeah, the squids are a bit dafter, aren't they? Yeah,
squids are definitely daft.
It tastes better, though.
They do like a daft laugh and that, don't they?
Yeah, they do.
So does the squid ink, do you think that gets recycled into water as well?
I would imagine it does. If they are excreting that on the space station, then it's fair game for the drinking water for the animals and the astronauts and cosmonauts.
I do love that. I'd never even thought that the mice weeing would make its way back into the water. That's really cool.
I know, it was my favourite little bit that I found, that one.
When do you think the first piece of the ISS was launched?
Okay, we're talking about 2019. Oh, well, hang on. When we're talking complete in 2001, or 2000? 2001.
Or something.
2001.
2000, yeah.
Okay.
When people started living
So they're
in it.
throwing the first bit up there. Most of it's made, isn't it? They're not making, they're only connected together up there. So they've got a few. I don't know. November 1998.
Yes, that's spot on. 20th of November 1998
Yes.
was the Zarya Functional Cargo Block, the FCB, was flown up on a Proton rocket, exactly like Salyut 1 30 years before.
Brilliant.
So, yeah, and that provided propulsion, attitude control, comms, electrical power, but no life support systems. So NASA sent up Unity a couple of weeks later on STS-88, and that was attached to Zarya by Jerry Ross and Jim Newman in multiple EVAs. Really long and brutal, by the sounds of it. But yeah, how cool is that? So yeah, Unity and Zarya were joined together. And then 10th of December is a really historic day. 10th of September 1998, they actually opened it up for the first time.
Right.
So Bob Cabana and cosmonaut Sergei Krikalev opened the hatch to the Unity node of the International Space Station, and then they started, unstowing all the gear and turning on the lights. And then a little bit later on in the afternoon, Cabana and Krikalev opened the hatch into Zarya, and Jerry Ross and Jim Newman assembled the S-band communication system in Unity, and they started, looking at things like problematic batteries and stuff like that.
And that's a soft launch party as well.
Getting all ready. Yeah, so they were the first people to sort of be in the International Space Station.
You think they had a little bit of a soft launch with, little band playing, a few hors d'oeuvres, that type of thing?
Well, it's definitely a sort of soft launch because no one was in it again until 2000, really.
Right.
Because Mir was still up there. Mir was still up there and being occupied, and that's where everyone's sort of attention was at that point, with the space shuttle going up to Mir and things like that. So, that was still occupied, and so the ISS wasn't really manned until 2000.
Right.
And it's in 2000 that Zvezda, this 1985 built hunk, was launched into orbit.
The DeLorean.
And so that was then sort of joined up and took over all the sort of automated systems and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And, that the docking was done via ground control and the Russian automated rendezvous system. So really sort of cool.
Yeah.
And that contains the toilet. So the Zvezda has sleeping, toilets, kitchens, the CO2 scrubbers, dehumidifier, oxygen generators, exercise equipment, data equipment, voice and TV comms. So basically, it's a pretty impressive module to get up.
Do you know what I was going to ask though? I know we had the dates further back on Mir being deorbited. Did they overlap?
Yeah, so they overlapped. Yeah.
That was just that was my big question: is how long has there actually been permanently a person in space?
Yeah, actually, yeah. I wonder. Yeah, when does it go back?
Yeah,
to?
because we know it's obviously been permanently crewed since 2000. So we're looking at 21 years. But if it overlaps with Mir, then we may have a longer time that Earth has had somebody permanently in space.
Yeah, I think it probably does go back to the first part of Mir, so probably 1986, 87, something like that.
That's amazing. That's something like just absolutely incredible. Because if you think of how close 85 is to 69 with the moon landing and everything, it's just pretty amazing stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I wonder if there's any crossover between Salyut 7 and Mir. Yeah. And if there was any crossover between Salyut 6 and Salyut 7. So it's really interesting.
Yeah, so we're
gonna have to look that up. And if anyone knows the answer to that question, how long have we permanently been in space?
Or when's the last time there was no one in space? I guess is probably a good way to say.
Yeah, when was the last time there was no one in space? Yeah. Well, that's a very good shout.
Sweet.
November 2000, Expedition 1 arrive on a Soyuz So that is Bill Shepard, who's only the second ever American to go up on a Soyuz as well. Yuri Gidzenko and good old Sergei K. Krikalev. So they, they spent weeks on board.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not all powered up though, because there wasn't enough electricity. So because they didn't have all the solar panels yet.
Right.
But there was lots of space shuttle flights as well going on at the time that were bringing all the bits needed to build the station. So space shuttles are flying up all the time at this point with bits of truss and all and solar panels and all things like that. Building the outside, the kind of hardware outside of the space station, not just these modules that fit together, but all the truss and everything to put all the power systems and everything else on.
Yeah.
So it over 2 years there's more stuff. Soyuz brings up things like the Piers module. Space Shuttle brings up the Destiny, the Quest, and things like, of course, one of the most important things, the Canadarm.
Oh, we love the Canadarm.
The Canadarm 2.
Yeah.
And lots of this trust stuff. But the expansion, now, what do you think stopped the expansion of the International Space Station? Of course, the design has actually radically changed from what it was originally supposed to look like.
Yeah.
And one of the big things was this one incident. What do you think it is? 2003.
2003. Well, it's a Columbia disaster. Yeah.
So the space shuttle's grounded for 2 years until 2005.
Yeah.
So it's actually, space station construction stops for 3 years until Atlantis STS-115 takes off in 2006 and carries on going, basically.
Yeah.
And with all these truss segments and solar arrays, et cetera, and building it up. Then they're able to take things up like once you've got all this power. That you can start taking up some extra cool stuff like the Harmony node, Columbus, which is the European laboratory, as we just mentioned, and then Kibo, which is the Japanese section that went up in 2 parts. And eventually the Russian Poisk module as well, 2009. Then Tranquility in 2010, which went up with the Cupola, went up with a cupola.
Francis Ford.
I can never say
Sophia.
it. And
Sophia Cupola.
Sophia Cupola. And she stayed there for a long time.
Yeah.
And people keep looking through her windows.
Yeah.
May 2010 is the penultimate Russian module, the Razvet. That is a weird one because the US funded the Zarya module to be put up. And then the Russians, in exchange, was delivered on the space shuttle in exchange.
Oh, that was nice and friendly.
Yeah. Leonardo, February 2011. That's when that was taken up on Discovery. Then your favourite, the Beam, that was taken up in 2016. Yeah. Nanoracks is a sort of thing that was added on as well. The Nanoracks Bishop airlock module, that was December 2020, went up on a SpaceX CRS-21. And of course, most recently, and all the drama is the Norca. What do you think Norca stands for?
I don't know. Need American underarm kangaroos again. No, it's just terrible. That wasn't it. It's not going to work. Go on. What's Norca?
Is science in Russian?
Oh, it's not an acronym. That's where I was going wrong.
It's not an acronym. No, it's not an acronym. Sorry.
All right. Flipping out.
But yes, so Norca docked on this week, 29th of July, on Zvezda's Nadir port. So Nadir is the bit that points to the Earth. Replacing the Piers module.
Yeah.
Which, as I said, was taken off and burnt up, being the first of the International Space Station bits that has been.
Yeah, definitely. And so my question is, how big could it be? I mean, how many pieces? How big I mean, if let's say money was no object, we were talking like the only object we're talking about here is physical weight and size. Like, how big do you think we could make the ISS if it just carried on, just getting bigger? Do you know what I mean?
Well, I don't see why you couldn't just keep building it up and up and up.
Yeah.
I guess the only reason why you might not be able to is these sort of tidal forces, and the fact that clearly there are sort of weird little quirks like controlling sections of the space station with gyroscopes and thrusters, and that all the computers have to be talking to each other, and it's quite easy to make a mistake. So obviously the bigger it gets, the more likely you are to have problems.
Yeah,
right?
sure. Yeah, that makes sense.
It's I don't know.
Let's leave it at this now.
It's all
leave it at this. And one in, one out, which is what's happened there. You know what I mean? Just
now,
just replace one.
Can you name all the vehicles that go to the International Space Station?
Okay, Soyuz.
Soyuz, correct.
Okay, and so then we've got Dragons.
Dragons, yeah, you got Dragons. Crew and normals.
Yeah, crews and normals. Ariane.
Cargos. Ariane.
Yeah.
Ariane 5 doesn't go there itself, but it did carry the European ATVs.
Ah, okay, yeah.
So of which there was only 5, and again, annoyingly, they were sort of named after Teenage Ninja Turtles, like Leonardo and stuff.
Yeah, I love it. No. Let's see. Well, I don't know the name of the Japanese HTVs.
HTVs is the Japanese.
Yes,
correct?
yeah. ATVs. That's the Arabans. What's that? Cygnus.
Yes, Cygnus. Yeah, that's another one.
Doing all right here. Is that? Well, obviously the space shuttle used to go
named
there.
after the Rush song. Yeah, space shuttle.
Yeah.
There we go. That's about it, really. So, 37 space shuttle missions have gone to the ISS.
Amazing.
That's a lot of money just in space shuttles. 75 Progress, which, of course, is the sort of cargo version of Soyuz.
Right.
59 crewed Soyuz, 5 European ATVs, 9 HTVs, 20 Dragons, 13 Cygnus. So, it goes to show how quickly SpaceX have become an incredibly important part of the International Space Station.
Without a doubt. When was the first one? Was it 2014 or something they first docked?
Sounds about right.
I think if that's about right, then that is really, really fast progress.
Yeah, and there's lots of different places they can dock. There's currently 8 docking ports.
Real.
Which is pretty cool, isn't it? 8 docking ports on the International Space Station. Yeah. Harmony Forward, Harmony Zenith, which actually has the Crew 2 Dragon Endeavour attached to it right
Amazing.
now. The Harmony Nadir. There's the Unity Nadir, the Norka Nadir, the Poisk Zenith, which currently has an MS-17 Progress attached, and Razvet Nadir, which has the Soyuz MS Yuri Gagarin attached at the moment, and the Zvezda Aft.
Fantastic. Can they all be docked at all times? Could it be full? You know what I mean?
It could be pretty full. I remember there was a picture of quite a lot of the most amount of spacecraft attached at any one time, including the space shuttle. And there was like 2 Progress, 3 Soyuz, and a space shuttle. It's crazy, like really busy.
That's so cool.
I wonder what the record is for the most amount of spacecraft docked at any one point to the International Space Station. But of course, we've got a new vehicle that's going to attempt it this week.
Oh yeah!
So I think it's going to attach to the Harmony Forward port, and that is the Boeing Starliner.
There's a Starliner by Boeing
trying to go to. But of course, the poor old Starliner. What's annoying for the poor old Starliner is that it tried to dock with the international. It was going to go up the other day, but this Norca incident, which I should talk about, really is. Do you want to hear what happened with the Norca thing? Because this is like literally crazy. So this week, Norca was launched. Now, this is something that was supposed to have launched in 2007. I didn't say 17. I said 2007. So it's another one of these Russian units that's just been knocking about for ages, waiting to be launched. And in fact, it was waiting around for so long that some of the parts ran out of warranty, and oil and fuel and everything leaked everywhere, and all the plumbing had to be replaced and delayed it for ages. Then there was COVID, all these sort of things are basically just continually annoyingly delayed Norca, which actually has a knock-on effect for the European robotic arm as well, because that sort of flies up with it. So these two things have just been in crates for ages. But it was launched finally on the 21st of July 2021, right? But it had all sorts of issues flying itself up to the International Space Station. Loss of telemetry, problems with the main propulsion system. It had to have loads of different correction burns. And so they were messing around with the Piers module as well, when to actually undock it and not undock it. So eventually they managed to, they undocked the Piers module, but days after it was supposed to. And eventually they sort of got it near the International Space Station. But as it was going in, there's these Toru and Kurs systems, which are the docking systems on the Norca. And they had problems locking onto the target. So they had to, Novitsky and Duprov had to help with the docking of Norca onto the Zvezda's Nadir port. And that is the first time in 20 years that the Russian segment has been expanded. But it was all sorts of problems. And, if that wasn't enough, so a few hours after they docked, while the crew were performing leak checks and preparing to open the hatch and stuff, something happened where the onboard thrusters of the Norca module were basically just started firing for no reason until they ran out of fuel. And that made the whole ISS rotate like 45 degrees out of the angle it's supposed to be, and they lost communications and stuff like that. And you think, oh my God, that sounds really dangerous. But apparently no one was in danger. But that sounds dangerous to me. Does it
sounds a
not
little
sound
bit
dangerous?
Slightly precarious. It sounds like this craft is like the drunk uncle of space flight.
Oh God! And basically, they had to wait until the thrusters had run out of fuel. But anyway, they managed to get the ISS back under control and get it back into its right position. Yeah, but that I can imagine that cost quite a bit of money. But it did delay Boeing's orbital flight test.
Of course,
which must have really annoyed everyone. And they set up a commission instantly with Bill Nelson as the boss and loads of international contractors. And basically what they said was there was a command sent to Norca from the ground that was sent before the Kurs and Toru systems had been deactivated. And that's why the thrusters had started firing.
Right.
And it's like, oh God.
What a mess.
There seems to be, it does, it just make you realise that space is dangerous and that the International Space Station could be destroyed by any kind of little remote accident at any time.
It's so precarious, but I also imagine like that with this kind of collaboration, the red tape, the admin involved when things like this happen must be absolutely enormous. I'm amazed they ever get anything done. Yeah.
So the next thing that they've got is a whole load of spacewalks. Yeah. So even though Norca's docked, it's pretty useless until they actually sort stuff out. The very first thing they've got to do is get the European space arm working.
Yeah. It's about time.
And, go out. The European robotic arm is out there attached to the outside of Norca, and it's going to take a spacewalk in September to get it off its external covers and launch restraints and actually get it going, basically. And until they've done that, they can't do anything else, because basically that is going to be, the European arm is going to be super important to actually build this multi-purpose laboratory module properly.
Yeah.
And so, that's got to be done, and then it's going to take another 10 spacewalks to basically put all these different bits that are all over the International Space Station. So there's bits for this, like the radiator and stuff like that went up like decades ago, ready to be put onto this Norca module, including like spare parts for the European robotic arm have been up there for about a decade.
Just in cupboards.
It's like
just gathered in dust.
Well, no,
what's this?
Weird. Not even in cupboards. They're sort of attached to the outside. They're in kind of like these outside bits of the space station. Yeah, because I guess storage is too valuable on the inside. Yeah. So loads of stuff. But it'd be like,
well, what's
on the outside?
Like, what's that thing out there? No one knows anymore.
No, I've literally got no idea. It's basically, when you see people that go on holiday and they put far too many things on their roof rack.
Yeah.
I can't help feeling the International Space Station's a bit like that.
Yeah, definitely. I bet you there's loads of stuff that just never will be used, isn't it?
Yeah, oh God, yeah. Now, we could talk for ages about space debris and the fact that the International Space Station does have to make maneuvers all the time to avoid space debris.
Amazing.
And there have been times as well where they see an object that's going to be in the vicinity of the International Space Station. They don't have time to do a maneuver, and everyone has to basically close all the hatches and then go down to their Soyuz escape craft, these lifeboats, get inside and just wait for the debris to go past.
Amazing. Amazing.
Yeah. And that's happened, that has happened several times, these partial station evacuations. So again, another reason to think that, at any point you can lose the International Space Station. And at $150 billion, that's quite a blow.
Yeah, definitely. And also just the safety of like the occupants. And I mean, I would imagine they've got a very good system to go, right, no, that's it. This is going to get hit. You guys are out of here. They get fired off. And it's actually, I keep saying the word precarious, but it is just like, it's such a delicate situation, isn't it? But so precious.
Yeah. I tell you what's weird. Back in December 2019, I was walking to your house when Boeing were attempting their first attempt at launching Starliner. Yeah. And I remember being at Clapham Junction, listening to a YouTube channel with going, oh my God, it's all going wrong for getting to your house. But so December 2019, they're repeating that test this week. Yeah. So that should be really exciting. And SpaceX have moved their Crew Dragon from the Harmony Forward port and moved it to the Harmony Zenith port to make space for the Starliner to arrive.
Nice.
And let's hope that it does. So that would be something to look out for this week. So that's, what do you think about the International Space Station, Chris?
I think that it is genuinely one of peoplekind's greatest achievements that we should always be proud of. And I just love that it's something that we can see as well. We can look up and marvel at, and, we can look at feeds of the view of Earth and stuff like that. But, I think the thing that it's done for us in terms of the knowledge that we have of our planet and the fact that we have somebody permanently in space. Is it mankind's greatest achievement? I don't know, possibly.
Yeah, I mean, I know that there are some detractors. I mean, it's a lot of money, isn't it? Having a lab that's costing $7.5 million a day per, but it's work that cannot be done elsewhere. Presumably, you can't see the effects of microgravity on people or on animals or on plants and things like that unless you actually go and do it. And you can't grow proteins and things like that, protein crystals that are completely unique, and things like fiber optic cables that are much better than if they're grown in microgravity than if they're sort of the crystals grown elsewhere. So there's loads and loads of research that goes on there, and it'd be really, really interesting to see what the spin-off is. And I should imagine that the spin-off of technology and the spin-off of research and the spin-off in terms of outreach as well, the amount of people that have been inspired by, say, in this country, take the people that have been inspired by Tim Peake going there and running a marathon there and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's really hard to put a number on what that actually will be to the economy. So you kind of think it's bound to be worth it in the end.
I think so, without a doubt. And even, talk about its construction and how many launches there had to be and how much money that had to be spent. I just don't think there's a concern in terms of how much needs to be spent. Like you said, there's things that we just can't know from down here that will be discovered time and time again up there. So and it's hard to it's hard to quantify it to everyday Joe, isn't it? But it is so important.
I mean, I bet financially it easily pays for itself, just like Apollo.
Yeah, exactly.
Did, really,
exactly.
Be quite nice to build a Lego version of the International Space Station.
Now you're talking. Do you think maybe the Spodcast might want to do that and send us some photos?
Now we're no longer in lockdown. We could have an International Space Station Lego building day.
Yeah, absolutely.
All travel down to the BIS.
Yeah, amazing.
And like book it out for the day and just build it.
Yeah, definitely. That'd be amazing. So as is the space station itself, a collaborative effort from all of us to make it.
Yeah, I expect all the Spodcats from Russia, Japan, and Canada and Europe to fly in to London to help me.
Wonderful.
I expect
and it'd be so lovely to see all of them.
Oh yeah, good, big time. I want to shout out to the other Spodcat.
Can I help you?
You can. Thank you so much to Paul Hilton.
Thank you, Bob Hodges.
John Benack.
Nicholas Gillenstein.
Kenton Hokanson.
Ronald Hatcher.
Marissa Davis.
Tristram Hyde.
Mark Schwern.
Christopher Andreessen.
Neil Hansen.
Tyrrell McAllister.
Jean Watchtanik.
Rob Annable.
Malte Keisling.
Stars Shusha.
Jordan L. Kurdi.
Bob Moore.
Auden Vala.
Adam French.
Al Broom.
Steve Croucher.
Mark Kelly. Not sure it's the same one.
Oh, the Mark Kelly. No, a Mark Kelly.
Yeah.
He's our Mark Kelly.
A Mark Kelly. Our Mark Kelly.
Jim King.
And Jenna Tijuana.
Thank you, Spodcats. You are amazing.
Oh, my God. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, because it does keep this going. One cannot impress on you just how important that is. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, Amol. Right. And now lockdown is finished. I'm going to try and do some exciting stuff.
Okay.
And try and get out there.
I'll look forward to it.
And do some little site visits.
Yeah.
From, get some stuff done. Right. Chris, are you doing anything exciting over the next week?
Back to work for me, Matthew. I've had a lovely holiday, and now it's getting my head down, get back in my job. But on Tuesday, I'm going to be in the office for the first time in my new job. I've been in the job for 6-7 weeks, and I'm going to actually be in the office. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Wow.
How about you?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I've been having to commute into work recently, so which has been fun, I suppose, seeing people again.
Yeah.
And I've got to go do that again this weekend. So there we go. It's it's what I got to do.
Have a lovely time,
Sometimes
Matthew.
you gotta
Go
do what
about
a man's
in
gotta
your
do.
world. Do what you got to do, but you do it with your fantastic, wonderful curly hair, which.
Well, you've got the same curly hair.
Well,
except yours hasn't gone
I wasn't
grey.
fishing for compliments, but
Yeah, we are the curly twins. Right, I think I'm going to let the Spodcats go.
Yeah, let's let them go.
Bye, Spodcats.
Bye, Spodcats. Bye, Spodcats. Bye, Spodcats.